Hi everyone, Brett Williams here from BretFX.com. I wanted to give you a run through on how to operate the numerous controls of Clock Maker. Some of them are more intuitive than others, I realize, so let's get right to it. When you open up the installer, you'll see this familiar interface. Just to install Clock Maker, just drag the Clock Maker icon into the generators folder. I'm going to drag that. I already have that installed, so I'm not going to do that. Let's go over Final Cut after you've done that and open up the generators pane of the effects browser. Scroll down and you should see BretFX Clock Maker. In here you've got the Clock Maker effect, and you've also got 21 presets. Each one of these is created from that same Clock Maker standard plugin. So you can create any of these with the regular plugin. There's nothing special about them, just some designs I came up with, good or bad, up to you. Alright, so let's go ahead and drag Clock Maker to the timeline. And I'm going to set this up as 2997. But you can use any frame rate that you like. And I'm going to go ahead and, this is a 10 seconds by default. I'm going to go ahead and keep it 10 seconds, but I'm going to expand the timeline with Shift Z just so it's a little bigger to work with here. I'm going to go ahead and turn skimming off as well. Makes things a little bit easier. Okay, so I'll go through the controls starting from the top. Position, over here, make sure your inspector's open if it isn't already. Okay, so over in the inspector, we've got position, size, and rotation. These are all pretty self-explanatory. Clock size. This controls the entire clock. Clock position, you can drag this to move it left and right, or enter numbers, of course. Drag this up and down. I'm going to go ahead and reset. The clock rotation is a little bit different. That you if you drag this up and down, it rotates. But if you open it up, twirl down this little triangle here, you now can actually rotate it on the X and Y axis. So for a little bit of a 3D angle, that sort of thing. Let's go ahead and reset that too. And of course, what really makes it easy is you've got the nice on-screen controls for scale and position. So if you drag in this little ring right here, you can scale it, and if you drag in the center, you can kind of move it around. And it looks like I clicked this little box along the way, which threw our inspector into text mode. We'll get to that in a minute. So going back to the generator, I'm going to go ahead and reset the controls. Move along. The animation controls are probably less intuitive. The start time, you don't have to keyframe anything to get this to, animate around the clock. It starts off, at noon, and it's going to animate all the way around, showing the little yellow elapsed or highlighted area, all the way around to, I guess, midnight, or however you want to look at it, 12 to 12. So let's go ahead and right here where this animation starts. So the first parameter in the animation is start time. This is basically on a 12-hour setting, 0 to 12. This is when you want the animation to start. So if we wanted it to start at 3 o'clock, we would just type in 3. So that's where our animation is going to start. The next one is not where you want the animation to end, but the duration of the animation. And this is not 10 seconds, 20 seconds. This is the how many hours around the face the hands are going to spin. So if we wanted it to go from 3 o'clock to, say, 6 o'clock, we wouldn't enter 6 o'clock here. We would enter the duration between 3 and 6 o'clock, which would be 3 hours. Let's enter that. And if I hit play with the spacebar now, you You can see. I'm not sure why the time display here wasn't updating. That's kind of interesting. Might be something to do with the screen recording. It's working now. So, and it should stop at 6 o'clock. There you go. The ease in and out controls will control how quickly it starts moving or how slowly it starts moving really, and how it eases into the ending. So let's try, first off, let's make it go a lot faster by making it traverse, say, 9 hours. And let's turn the ease in and out controls all the way on. And it should start a little bit slowly, kind of ramp up to moving around the face quickly, and then it'll kind of ease into the, let's see, 9 hours, that's going to be 12 o'clock. So it's going to go from 3 to 12. Now it's getting faster. And slows down. So if you're doing some motion graphics or some time lapse or something where the background video is doing the same thing, kind of slowing down into the final frame, you might want to do this. So you might want to do the ease in and ease out. But normally I think you would want this off and keep it as a linear progression of time. That's up to you. The start delay, you may have noticed that we've been looking at the animation from about 1 second in here. That's because I have the start delay on. By default, it's set to 30, and on a 10-second animation, that's going to give you about a second before the animation starts. And I did that so that you can transition in with a dissolve or whatnot, and the clock isn't already moving. But you might want it to be already spinning. So if you want it to start right at the beginning of your generator effect, just turn this down to 0. And by the same means, you have what's called the end hold, and that's how long it stops. And well, that's how long the animation holds after it finishes. So it's stopping here at 9 seconds, and it's got about a second of pad at the end for the same reason. So if you want to transition out. But we're going to spin that all the way back to 0. So now it's traversing those 9 hours of time in the full 10 seconds. Whereas before it was going from 1 second to 9 seconds. That's pretty much it for the animation controls. The highlight always follows whatever you have, whatever time you have the hands. So it's essentially following the hour hand, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you've set up for the animation controls. The next thing down here is the title. That's basically just a simple text title that you can change however you like in the text pane of the inspector. You can move it around, put it anywhere you want. You can control it. You can control where it is down here as well if you need a little more position finesse, I guess. And it is integrated. It's not just a standalone text effect. So if you move the clock around, up and down, or even if you rotate it, that little text effect is going to stay right there with it. So that's what we mean by an integrated text. I'm going to go ahead and set all this back to 0. And we'll turn that title off. So moving right along, the highlight we were just talking about that follows the animation of the hands. This highlight here has a few controls. The position of the highlight, this is how far it is from the center. Right now it's kind of more of a pie shape. So if I move it away from the center, You'll see it starts to be more like a kind of like a stroke, I guess, a very wide stroke. And you can control that right here with the highlight width. You can make it more narrow, and then you can move it back in if you want. Once you play around with this, it makes a lot of sense. What's not quite as obvious is what's the purpose of the highlight mode? Well, this is set to be linear burn by default, which gives it more like an actual highlight marker. It interacts with the color in the background. So even though it's just gray, the brightness and the color is actually reacting to the clock face in the background. If you put it on normal, it just obliterates, just a solid color. And it's more than just transparency, because you can adjust the transparency as well right here. And see, it's not quite a highlight, it's just kind of a pasty look. So flip that to linear burn, you can see it's interacting with the background a lot more. And I think normally you'd probably want to keep your opacity full. And if you didn't like the look of this, then you'd probably go in and start playing around with the color, trying to get it to react and look exactly as you like. But with all these controls, you ought to be able to come up with a look that works for you.